Right, so today we're going to be starting a new mini-series. Since I've seen how much you've all been enjoying the food content recently, as I particularly noticed in the last video, today we're going to expand things out a little bit here. And navigating my slight lactose intolerance, we're going to be trying to answer the question, what is the best fast food pizza? With that being said, since we obviously need to start somewhere and achieve our initial benchmark, let's test Papa John's. So for our first test, and since it's in the name, fast food pizza, we're gonna have to figure out exactly how fast that pizza is. So we're gonna grab a stopwatch here, and I've just ordered, so let's begin that. So we're just coming up to 15 minutes on our stopwatch, or wait for our pizza to arrive. In the meantime, I'll just run through some of the numbers with you, so you get a bit more context here. So I ordered this through Deliveroo, even though it's from Papa John's, and I paid £22.29. Now this was for a medium pizza with just cheese and tomato on top. So I think that's quite expensive, but obviously we yet to test some of the other places, and we'll add it into a spreadsheet and calculate exactly who's the best value for money. But more importantly, in terms of the tests we're doing today, our first one's going to look at temperature on arrival. So we've got a thermometer here to be able to see exactly what a cheese temp is. Our next test we'll have a look at is crust crunch, and we use a decimeter to see exactly how loud it is, and we can compare it across brands. And finally, obviously we're going to do a taste test, but I've listened to you guys and I've made a patent pending palate cleanser that we'll have between each bite. So we should be able to get a very fair test. So I can see our pizza is almost here, but quickly before it arrives, I'll run through some of the trivia with you. In terms of the history of Papa John's, it was founded in 1984 by Papa John Schnatter. The initial restaurant was inside his father's tavern in a broom closet, apparently, in Jeffersonville, Indiana. And he set this up after having sold his 1971 Camaro Z28 to purchase the pizza equipment to actually make his first pizzas. One of the other things of note that I saw on the Wikipedia was that they've got a lawsuit with Pizza Hut. Now, Pizza Hut filed a lawsuit against Papa John's based on a series of advertisements that compared the ingredients of Papa John's and its competitors. Pizza Hut successfully argued that Papa John's slogan did not constitute a statement of literal fact, that fresh ingredients do not necessarily count for a better pizza. Bit of legal jargon there, but interesting stuff nonetheless. So our pizza is finally here, so we can stop the clock, and it's actually quite an impressive 21 minutes. I would say that's pretty fast food if you ask me. Let's now open this and see what we're working with. It smells really good here, I've got to say. So here's the first look at our pizza. Look at that, we even got two of the little tables. I think that looks pretty good. We'll take these off. So there is our Papa John's pizza. I think that looks really good. Let's not wait too long before we check the temperature. So let's see what we're working with. Right, so it's 59.5 degrees Celsius. I don't think that's too bad. Obviously, I haven't done any of the other tests yet to see whether that's really good or really terrible. In terms of how warm it feels warm, but not hot. So obviously we couldn't eat the crust without actually ending up trying the pizza. So we'll do the crust crunch test at the end. But for now, let's drink some of our patent pending palate cleanser to be able to try our first slice. Palate is now cleansed. We can try our first slice. That actually works quite well. So there is our first Papa John's slice. I think that looks pretty good if you ask me. Enough waffling, let's just try this thing now and see what we're working with. Okay, so let's see. Let's go in. Okay, no cheese pull. So obviously I'm getting the cheesy dairy flavor with the tomato underneath, and it cuts through really nicely. The base is actually quite sweet. A little bit more than I was expecting. I haven't had Papa John's for a while, and it's sweeter than I remember. I thought it'd be slightly saltier tasting. The base is also quite soft. You can see, not particularly crunchy. Now the slice isn't bad, but for some reason it does taste quite sweet. And I do wonder if that's maybe because they use a bit of sugar to help it rise quickly. Obviously the yeast is going to digest the sugar to make carbon dioxide in the actual dough. So I'm not sure with that, but maybe they just add it for flavoring. So I think it's time we do the crust crunch test. So let's get this on. I don't really have high hopes because this feels quite soft, but we still need to do the test anyway. Hopefully you can see that. It is on. Okay, I'll be quiet now. So there was a little crunch there. Obviously, I'll have to check in the edit later on exactly what it was, but we did get a little crunch. I heard it. So in terms of the numbers so far, I think for temperature, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. I think it could be a lot warmer since it was 59.5 degrees. That's on the lower end of warm. It's not cold by any means, but it's definitely not hot. So we're going 4.5 out of 10 for temperature. Crust crunch was pretty terrible. I'll have to check in the edit exactly what the number was, but I think we'll give crust crunch maybe 5 out of 10. Since there was a crunch noise that was made, but it just wasn't very loud. And finally, in terms of our taste test, it wasn't bad. I quite enjoy the pizza. Good balance of flavor. It's quite sweet for my taste, but I think considering maybe that's to do with the process of how they make it. I'll give them a solid 5 out of 10 again for the taste test. This is what I was expecting with Papa John's to be kind of a middle entry, because it's quite a good benchmark for our test later on, see if something's amazingly better than this or way, way worse. So totting up our points so far, they've got 14.5 out of a possible 30. Now that's not bad, but it's bang on basically in the middle, which is kind of what I was expecting, as I mentioned, with Papa John's. With that being said, we're now going to do a couple extra tests to hopefully help us with tiebreakers later on if we get lots of the same score. So our first one, we're going to have a look at their garlic dip, which a lot of these fast food pizza places sell a version of. So let's get this one open. You can see that's what it looks like. Nothing particularly special. But before we try that, let's just have some of our patent pending palate cleanser. Lovely stuff. Right, okay. So we'll grab our slice. I think it's better to try it with a piece of pizza than just on its own. Get rid of that last straggler there. Let's do our dip here. So it's nice and coated there. You can see we've got a good bit on that. Let's try this. Since the tomato sauce in our Papa John's pizza is not that sharp, this actually adds quite a nice sharpness that I think is missing and makes the flavor slightly more well-rounded. I quite like this. The only thing is consistency is slightly fake looking, which is a little bit off-putting, and it's very, very, very white, which makes it look a little bit like toothpaste on my pizza, which is not that appetizing, but it's still quite tasty. So I'm gonna give this a rating, but it doesn't count to our overall number for our Papa John's pizza. I'm gonna give this like a 6 out of 10. It's got good flavor to it, but the consistency and color is slightly strange. Right, let's move on to our final test, and that's gonna be dessert. So obviously for dessert, there's quite a few different options. So what I've had to do is basically pick the most popular out of the ones that they sell. Now this seems to be that for Papa John's, and it's basically a giant cookie, which is hot, I can feel underneath. So I'm quite excited. This looks quite good from the pictures. There you go. It looks slightly less less exciting than the pictures seem to make. Let's just quickly, it's hot, so let's just check the temperature since we've got a thermometer here. So it's a 48.3. So maybe that gives you a bit of reference for our pizza earlier on. There's our cookie pizza, right. It didn't come with any ice cream or anything. Pizza Hut sells a little ice cream with their hot cookie dough. This is basically the competitor dessert to that. Let's give it a try. But actually we can't forget, we need to have some of a palate cleanser before we do that. It's a very simple recipe. It's just hot cookie dough. Basically a cookie that's been cooked quite recently. I think I'll give them a 7 out of 10 for that. Yeah, this is probably one of the better things I've had from Papa John's today. So overall, I don't think Papa John's did too bad. It's kind of what I was expecting, as I mentioned earlier, roughly in the middle. Overall was a 14.5 out of a total possible 30, which is a really good benchmark and will help us decide later on when it comes to the other fast food pizzas. With that being said, let me know which brands you want to see me test. Obviously in the comments, I love reading your comments anyway, so it'll be useful also to know who you want to see me try. Also, obviously I'm looking to do other tests, so make sure you leave those in the comments if you have any other ideas you want to see attempted. But for now, comment what we should try next. Very cool.